Welcome to another episode of Charros y Clásicos, a Bajski Strings podcast. I'm your host, Miguel Gutierrez, and as always, I'm here with my good friend and co-host, Joel Ozuna.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining for another episode of Charros y Clásicos. Today's guest is Edinburgh native. He graduated from Edinburgh High School. He's a graduate from UTRGV, currently head mariachi director of Grand Prairie Fine Arts Academy. Please welcome Eddie Lopez.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for coming in, man. I mean, I know you're here for the holidays, and we're probably taking time away from your family, but
It's all good,
you're here, to share your story.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I've been hearing a lot of success from your shop, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you.
So, currently you're teaching where again?
In Grand Prairie.
Grand Prairie.
Right, suburb of Dallas.
How long you been there now?
This is my second year, so year and a half.
Wow.
Yeah, I just started in 2021. It's been a crazy ride. Yeah.
Has it been difficult? Because I know that where were you before?
LA,
and like the move over and everything.
Yeah, well, lived in Texas for many years, so I feel comfortable with Texas, but it's been, settling down back into Texas is a little hard, but you get used to everything. Yeah, it was coming from LA, especially gigging all the time. I was just working out there, so being a teacher, it's been fun. A lot of ups and downs, but it's been good so far.
That's good to hear, man. I want to ask you a couple questions, about what made you do this, and other highlights of your career. But what I'm mostly fascinated about you, and I've always been fascinated about you, is your learning and your writing. There's for a while there was a big following, and everybody wanted you. Like all these people in schools, directors, they would tell me, I want Eddie to do this for me. That's the name that everybody throws around for you, right?
You.
Like
That's very
Eddie.
nice of you, man.
And I kind of wanted to pick your brain a bit about how is it that you came to get to where you are in your ability.
It's mostly luck, man. Like everything, it's just catching the right thing at the right time, I think. Obviously, there's hard work involved, but you can't deny the element of luck. Like just being at the right place at the right time. I studied writing. I studied contemporary harmony at Berklee College of Music, and I went out there. I was out there for a while, and things just kind of lined up. And I can go into as much detail as you want, but I just really pretty much caught the wave where people started asking for custom arrangements. And I feel partly responsible for that. Obviously, there was a whole bunch of people doing this. Marco Zarate was writing stuff. I know there's a lot of other people that were here. This is early 2000. This is about 2010, 2011, 2012. Pancho had this vision to have original stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was getting ready to leave the East Coast after finishing my degree. And he just said, can you write music for me? I was like, yeah. I studied writing. I studied jazz, arranging, big band, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. I've always been a big jazz guy. And I started doing it just because I learned how to write for that. And then I've done mariachi my whole life. So it just kind of put the two together. Obviously, following along what Jose does. And Rigoberto, that was kind of my Rigoberto Alfaro, kind of my guide. I was like, I want to emulate that. But because I understood the harmony. Mm-hmm. And then I just did it for Pancho. And he was like, oh, this is cool. And then people liked it. And what really, I think, started this whole crazy movement, like I said, I was a big part of it. I was not the only one, of course, but I started offering people custom arrangements because it would be like, well, let's do Veracruzos or let's do, and I would think to myself, well, your group is half girls. This is written for a 13 male ensemble, with all tenor or male voices. Why are you going to write? Well, because there's nothing else. I'd be like, what if I told you I could write something that fits your music, You could tell me what your strengths are. I got a really good lead trumpet. I got a crazy vihuela player, but the violins are kind of weak. Okay, I'll write something for them. And pues como que le gustó a la gente, they started liking it. And then after I knew it, I was writing for different people. And I just, like I said, I was at the right place at the right time because it was kind of like the wave where people starting to have temas. Everybody had a tema. Everybody had their own arrangements. They wanted that kind of original stuff. Everybody wanted solis, trumpet solis, violin solis, armonia solis. And I was like, well, I can do that. It's not easy, but I can figure out how to write something like that. And a lot of trial and error. The first things I did, it's kind of rough, it's you just learn with experience. But it was pretty much just like I said, I studied it, and then I caught the wave at the right time. I think if I would have been, I don't know, 5 years earlier or 5 years later, if I would have been 2005, being here with what I knew, the market wasn't ready. The market per se, the schools weren't ready to have their own original stuff. And if I would have been like 5 years later, I'm sorry, then all the people started coming out and doing it. And I wouldn't have caught the crazy, I don't know, wave that I did. It's pretty much, that's what I believe. And I think I just feel very blessed to be able to have written for so many schools and have a lot of my music out there. It's a lot. That's a lot of arrangements that I've done for schools here in the Valley.
About how many, from the top of your head, how many arrangements have you made for schools?
I have no idea, man. If I was to really throw a number out, it's got to be like, I don't know, 150, 200 arrangements. I would say about 150, 200. I don't know. There's other stuff that I've done, like including UTRGV, written some stuff for schools in Vegas and Tucson that kind of like came with the whole wave. And to this day, just stuff that I've kind of like recycled. I did for Aslan for UTRGV, but then somebody in Vegas asked for something like that. I'd be like, oh, you want something like that? Well, does that count as an arrangement? Kind of, but it's kind of like recycled. So, yeah. So
it's funny what you brought up a while ago about, the tailoring. And that's something that I always would discuss. I never told you this when we were in UTRGV Aslan, but when we would have our little talks about you, talking about the other people in the group, and we would just, in our, we would hang out and have our spare time. We would talk about your brilliance.
That's very nice of you.
And, not to, make you feel strange or anything, but we would always say how we really saw the genius of how you were able to take a group. I mean, if they had 3 violins or 5 trumpets, and you made them sound like a normal ensemble.
Well, first of all, that's so nice of you. Thank you so much. But yeah, I don't know if it's genius, man. Like, I think what it really is again, it's part of my personality. I've always been really, I'm like a nerd, first of all. It's like, I love to study. I love to learn. I've always been like a theory nerd. And also I have kind of like undiagnosed ADHD. I don't know. That's not to like offend anybody, but I feel like I've always just been very much like that. And I get very not bored. I just can't settle down with one instrument or one genre.
Because you play all of them too, right?
Yeah, and the mariachi, más o menos. But I try to do a little bit of everything, and except for harp. But I've also done rock. I used to play drums in a rock band. I used to play bass in a salsa band. I used to play double bass in my school's concert band. Like I've done a lot of little things like that at church. I used to play guitar, bass. So a conglomeration of all those experiences is what I've come to really think that a writer can really benefit off of, because you understand every instrument properly. There's some people that write out there very talented, but maybe they don't understand how the violin works, and they write these crazy parts that might be easy to play on the piano or like on a guitar. On the violin, they're not going to sound good, And like certain chords or certain chord structures sound a lot better on voices. Like voices, you can get away with almost anything as long as people sing it in tune. You can get away with any like kind of harmony. But that's not the case with violins, or trumpets. It's different timbres and stuff. So just being able to relate all that to my playing experiences. And I've always just kind of been like I said, like an ear training nerd. I've always just been able to analyze it. I'll hear something. I'll be like, why does that sound good? I go home and figure it out. I'll be like, I have no idea. Because, mariachi, I was able to pick up primera, segunda, tercera, that kind of stuff. Pretty easy when I was younger. But then I'll be like, what was that? I don't know what that is. Let me get my guitar, figure it out. Try and try. I'll be there for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Figure it out. I'll find the relationship between the key and that. And then I'll be like, that's the function of that. And then just kind of make it in. And that's just kind of like my nature. Like I said, I'm like a nerd. So I would always figure things out like that. And como te digo, I think it's just a lot of like just coincidences that things lined up for me. That I was able to study this stuff at a young age. Y luego I understood the instruments and trying to be a little creative. I think creativity is like a muscle. You can also build it. You can keep working on it and you will get more creative. And there's some stuff that when I started that I could do now in 1/10 of the time. It's just, or it depends also how accessible it is. I mean, I think it's a little the creativity aspect you do get better at, but like I said, it's just in my nature. Like kind of my nature lines up with what you need to be a writer. And I think that's just luck. I honestly think that's just luck, and obviously working hard. But at the end of the day, you can't deny that just some things are just like lined up,
meant to be.
I guess, yeah. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about your upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you have a couple of siblings, right?
I do.
That are also musicians.
They are. I have an older brother and a younger brother. I do. Yeah, I'm the middle child. How far back do you want me to go?
Well, I mean, my question was going to be, are you first generation? Obviously, you're not. But is anybody else in your family, not your siblings, that are also musicians?
My dad is a minister. He's a pastor. And because of that, he had to learn how to play the guitar for church. So my dad is a musician, but he's a self-taught musician, knows basic chords and piano. My dad's an incredibly smart man, and I think that he passed on a lot of, he was my first teacher. And he taught me the basics of, how to hear primera, segunda, tercera. And because of that, I was able to just kind of, take off from there.
How old were you when you learned this?
Well, my dad, taught me piano, one-finger lines on when I was in kinder. So, for my Mexican kinder graduation, I played Las Golondrinas, one finger. Bum, 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 bum. So it's kind of like a cute thing, But then I was maybe 9, 10 when I started learning guitar. He taught me, C, círculo de do, círculo de sol, and then F. Wow. And then, I don't know, he taught me that, but then he's not a full, dedicated professional musician. Like I said, he could have. I think he has a talent to have done it, but since
it's something he picked up.
He picked up out of necessity to play at church. He was a minister. He'd be a missions. So there was nobody to play music. I'll play guitar and everybody sings along. That kind of thing.
My earliest memory of you was, I think I told you about this before, but we were at UIL contest for orchestra, and after we would play, we would sit and listen to other groups. Mm-hmm. And I remember when my group was done, we were sitting in South Middle School, comes onto the stage, and, Miss Norma Cardenas, was the director. And I think the piece you were playing, it's a very, very well-known piece for middle school called El Toro. And it had a solo. And,
you have a crazy memory, man.
Oh, yeah. I have semi-photographic memory.
Nice.
Sometimes I run out of film, but it's there. But yeah, I remember that was the piece that you all were playing, and it has a solo, and
that's all coming back to me.
Yeah, and I saw you that was, and I said, man, that kid must be super good because you had the solo, and ever since then, Eddie and Eddie.
That's so funny, man, because I can tell you what my first experience with you was. Not to that change subject, but that's funny because you say that because my first experience was, I guess, a year later. We're both freshmen. You went to Economides. I went to Edinburgh.
Yeah.
And then we were at the Capitol in Austin.
Yeah, that's right.
And you guys played Las Tres Huastecas.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think you didn't play soul, did you?
No.
Yeah, but you did the afterwards, and that's really hard to do, especially as a 14-year-old player. And I thought that was crazy. And I was like, man, look at that guy. I know he's a viola player, but he's playing the solo. I was like, that's pretty crazy. So that's funny because, going way back, it's just, I guess there's influences are still there, I know we both have done so much in our lives, but it's still kind of there.
Yeah.
These memories. But going back to what you said, I think, South Middle School.
Well, I bring up this memory because, that's when I first learned of you. And now my next question is, so, you're telling me that your dad taught you, basic chord structure and all this, but when did you choose violin? Because you were playing violin at the time.
Yeah. I mean, the honest truth is I chose violin because my brother, Armando, he's my older brother. He's 3 years older than me. He played cello.
Oh.
And the only reason he played cello, I think the story goes along we came from Mexico when I was 8 and they didn't have any room in band. And then they were like, go to orchestra. And he was like, oh, I want to play that. And they're like, well, all we have is cellos. So, it's kind of typical, first generation stories. He was the one, he was like a trailblazer for us. He's the one that kind of opened up the path for us. He's the one that struggled the most. But he was a cello player. So I was like, in my mind, I was like, if I play violin, we can do duets. That's literally what I thought.
Okay.
I guess I was lucky enough to even have that kind of foresight as a, 11-year-old and be like, if we play two cellos, it's going to sound kind of weird, muddy. It's just not something, but I've seen cellos and violins playing duets. That's the best I can remember. In my mind in the past, whenever I've kind of asked that same question, that's kind of what I think why I played violin, because of that. And I can't really tell you anything else. because it wasn't like I was drawn to it. I wanted to play. No, it's just like, well, you're going to play music. Okay, well, your brother's in orchestra. He plays the cello. Just play violin. Okay. That's pretty much it, man.
So another thing that a lot of people, have asked or have wondered is, you graduate from, we both graduate the same year,
right,
from high school, and a lot of people expected you to go to Pan Am and start off, in Aslan there, but you didn't, right?
I did 1 year, and then I left. Yeah.
And where'd you leave to?
I went to Boston, Berklee College of Music, and I did jazz guitar. So I guess your question is, why did I leave? Is that kind of what you're asking me?
No, it's mostly what motivated you to choose Berklee, or is that when you already knew, like, oh, this is what I'm going to do, like music?
No, not at all. I played violin, and I was just lucky enough or fortunate enough to be good at it, and I started playing with Aslan, under Pancho and Dr. Guerra, with my good friend Matthew Serna. He's not in the industry. I mean, only a few people know of him because he was a big deal back in high school, but he's a doctor now. He taught me everything pretty much. The first years of my real learning, he taught me everything. We both played with Aslan. I was a junior and he was a senior, a year older than us. And playing those 2 years with Mariachi Aslan, I think it was called, I don't know if it was called Aslan yet at the moment, UTPA or UTR, whatever, Mariachi. And those 2 years just playing with a crazy good group like that, it was amazing. As a 16-year-old kid, right? But I just kind of got the travel bug, I graduated high school. I started studying engineering at UTRGV. And halfway through the year, I was like, I don't think this is for me. Like, this kind of feels like I'm in high school still. I mean, I know it might be kind of like something that might seem a little arrogant or whatever, but I just felt like I didn't want to be there anymore. And it's not like there's anything by any means, like, man, some of the best musicians I've ever met or have stayed here in UTRGV and stuff, but I was like, I want to do more. I want to do crazy things. I want to, like, I don't know.
You wanted a different scenery.
I wanted different scenery. I wanted to get out of the valley. And I had gotten accepted to Berklee College of Music, my high school graduation, and the acceptance lasted for 3 semesters. So I went back and talked to my parents. I was like, I don't want to do engineering anymore. I want to go to Berklee College of Music. And they supported me, crazily enough. And I just booked it. I left everything with like $500 in my pocket, and I just went over there. And it was pretty crazy. But yeah, and I left to study jazz. That's what I wanted to do. In my mind, I was like, I'm going to be a jazz musician. Because, jazz has that complexity of harmony, melodies. Jazz was always, for me, like the stuff that I would hear and it would confuse me. And that drew to me. That's, like I said, I'm a nerd. So
it was like a mystery to you.
It was a mystery to me. I would listen to big bands. I would listen to 5-part harmonies. And I'll be like, I thought there were 3 notes in the chord. How is there 5 parts? How does that work? I want to know how to do that. Like I said, I was always really working on my ear from when I was in high school, ear training. I would go online and do like ear training stuff. So I had a pretty developed ear for a high schooler, and I would start transcribing stuff when I was in high school. I would transcribe mariachi stuff. It wasn't always right. It was pretty okay, but like at the third parts, I would kind of like miss a lot. But I understood how 3-part harmony worked for the most part. But for me, I really didn't understand 4-part harmony, 5. I mean, that's something that gets hard. And I would listen to Gordon Goodwin's Big Fat Band, Count Basie, Big Man Stan Kenton, and I would listen to them and I'd be like, how do they get these? They call them soli sections where they're playing 5-part moving harmony. I can see you can maybe do like a 7th chord, 9th chord in 1, 5 notes, but how do they move? I want to know how to do that. And there was no YouTube back then that taught you, how to do that. YouTube was barely coming out.
Right.
There's no like online education was not really what it is right now. So I was like, the only place that I can really learn how to do this is Berklee. I mean, obviously, you can go to other North Texas at a great jazz program, Kingsville. But I don't know, just the name Berklee really drew me because it's supposed to be like the best school,
Yeah.
John Mayer and all those crazy names that, that come out from the Quincy Jones. So I was like, I want to go over there. And that's why I decided to go over there. It's just like the big name. I was like, I want to learn how to do this stuff. And when I was going to study jazz, I get over there and start studying jazz, but I didn't have any money. So I was like, I'm going to do jazz gigs. And it was actually funny because I signed up for like a board to do jazz guitar gigs. And in that same board, like there were like 100 other jazz guitarists, each of them with way more experience than I did. And even at the top of the board, I had like 20 of them were Berklee faculty who were my professors. So I'm like, why are they going to call me? They have these people lined up. So I knew it was going to be impossible for me to get work out there. So I started working mariachi. And I had never gigged before. So I went out there and I had zero repertoire, zero. I'm talking about like they would ask for Las Llaves de mi Alma. I never heard in my life. So it was a very, very fast learning experience. I started gigging on Vihuela. And then little by little, I started gigging mariachi, but at school I was studying jazz. So it was kind of two worlds. And I guess to kind of close the circle, when I graduated, we started a program out there with Adrian Longoria from Houston. He's a director of Mariachi Origen. No, I'm sorry, Mariachi Tradición de Jalisco in Houston. He was out there with me. We founded the mariachi, so I started writing for the program. But I had never written before. I just like, I think this is going to sound good. I wrote a tema. I wrote some crazy stuff. Like we went to San Antonio, we played second place, and everybody was like, "Oh, these Berklee kids, whatever. Where are they getting their music? Well, never heard that before." So I think that was also kind of like along the times that when Eloy started writing for his middle schoolers. And I think that it just kind of, a lot of people were like, where did you guys come from? And a lot of people knew me already because from the Valley. But a lot more people knew Adrian Longoria. He was Llaneros, the guy that would do Vihuela play. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people would go to him and be like, hey, man, your group and your writing sounds really good. He'd be like, no, I didn't write it. Eddie wrote it. And then they would come to me like, oh, what? It was crazy. So that was kind of like my first experience writing. And then I know I kind of like trailed off into a crazy topic, but that's just kind of how
it's all good.
The whole jazz and mariachi connected to me because I started gigging over there. Gigging, like chamba, plantas, talon with a lot of Salvadorians, a lot of good musicians, a lot of bad musicians too. All kinds of musicians, good gigs, bad gigs, cantina gigs, corporate gigs, $1 million mansions, really bad cantina gigs at 2 a.m. So all of that kind of with like my jazz education, I was able to write contemporary for mariachi ensemble. And then, I don't know if you want me to kind of keep going in the same lane, but eventually I came back to UTRGV.
I was going to say, so after Berklee, you come back, right? And then, because when we were spending time in the group, you were working on a master's.
I was, which didn't go anywhere. I actually never finished it, but I came back, and when Pancho asked me to come back, well, I kind of told him, I was like, hey, I want to leave Berklee. I kind of had a falling out with the Berklee people because they had told me that I was going to be like a lecturer out there or something. If I brought the program up, that didn't happen. So I was like, why am I here? I'm going to go somewhere where I can grow and I can learn. I called Pancho and he's like, yeah, come. I'm kind of starting a new wave of Aztlán. That's the wave that Nathan Garcia, who's now guitarón for Los Camperos.
Yeah.
Pepe Perez, who's not the viola player for Sol de Mexico. Adolfo Estrada, who's not Dr. Estrada. David Moreno, who's also has a master's. Frank Carrion, who's out in Odessa teaching. He brought us all the same year, 2012. And I guess he was just kind of like, right for the group. And he invited me to come back. And I told him, well, I've always kind of like been like a frustrated trumpet player because I love the trumpet, but I just doesn't seem to love me. So I don't know. It's just, I've been struggling a lot with the trumpet forever. And I wanted to be a full-time trumpet player. So I told Pancho, I want to have a master's in trumpet performance. He was like, whatever, just come and then you can study whatever you want. And so he helped me with finances and he helped me with my room and board. And then that's why I came back to do my master's. But it was hard because I was doing my master's on trumpet performance, but I was playing violin and writing at the same time. And it was really hard to find the balance. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know how busy we got with Aztlán. You know how busy we got, yeah.
So after your time at Pan Am, together, mm-hmm. You went to LA, right?
I did for one semester. I taught in Roma. I taught in Roma under Eloy. He invited me out there for a semester. This is in 2014, the spring of 2014. He invites me out there. I didn't have my certification, but I was doing my alternate certification at the same time. I taught with Dominga. Dominga and I were both the middle school directors. Eloy was Dominga Garza. And Eloy was the director for the high school. And he, it just didn't, I wasn't ready for it. I don't think I was ready for it. I was just too young. I had too many, itch to travel still. I was like, it's hard not being a Roma native and living out in Roma. I mean, as many Valley students know, I mean, it's a very different place. Mm-hmm. I had lived in Boston for 5 years, so
From busy city to
It's hard,
calm
yeah.
town.
I mean, they both have their nice things. I can honestly say that, but it was just very different, very very different. You know, the students would be like, "Hey, sir, I saw you at Burger King yesterday. I saw your car there," and I'll be like, "What? You know, it's a small town. It's just everything." And it was just kind of a difficult change of scenery. And I did one semester, and I just kind of like left. I told Eloy maybe around March, April, "Hey, I don't think I can do this anymore. Thank you so much." And you know, we left in amicable terms. We were all good. He's a great friend of mine. He taught me a lot as well. So I left the certification, and that's when I left to LA in September, October 2014. I was just like, I'm going to go gig, because I gigged in Boston, but I knew LA is a place to go to kind of like cut your teeth, you know, and really build your repertoire, your chops, everything.
So all you did in LA was freelance?
Pretty much, but like at this point, as we had mentioned earlier, I was already writing for a lot of people. So that was kind of like,
more work like that?
I started getting a lot of work for Charlie's program in Sherryland. I think he was in La Jolla before that for a brief amount of time. For Alex Trevino, I wrote for Alex for many years. Very thankful to him. I wrote for the Roma middle schools a lot. A lot of schools, in like I said, in Sherryland, Edinburgh. I did some stuff for them. Just, you know, little schools there. And then Vegas program started growing.
I was going to say, eventually you started branching out to other places, not just the Valley.
Yeah, just because, like I said, it's such a crazy small market that, I mean, todos se conocen. Everybody knows each other. Everybody's like friends with each other. And I guess somebody would hear, "Oh, I like that arrangement." Yeah, well, Eddie wrote it. And then here's his number. Can I buy it from you too? I'd be like, okay, or I can just write you a new one. And yeah, it was pretty busy. Like a company, like I would do a lot of pistas for the San Antonio extravaganza. They'll be like, I want an arrangement of whatever it might be, you know, Mariachi en mi tierra. And I'll write something original. I'll just record everything at home and make some extra cash. And so I was gigging while starting to do that. And then around that time, I got an opportunity to be a guest. Nothing official with the school, but the school association, the school mariachi from Stanford University, where my fiance graduated from. They kind of found out that I knew mariachi, and they were like, "Hey, when you come and direct us." And so I kind of got that side gig at the same time.
Oh wow!
So every 2 weeks I would drive up to Stanford, which is about 5 hours from LA, for 2 days, 3 days, teach, and then come back for the weekend to gig. So I was doing that for 2 years.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So yeah, that's when I really was writing and freelancing and gigging. That's where I got to really, I played guitarrón for about a year and a half with a group that were gigging about 20 hours a week. So it was one of those, like, playing with some very good musicians out there. Adrian Baca was on Sol de Mexico. Patty Martin, who was in Reina for many years. Juan Manuel Macías, the trumpet player, who's the director of Los Palmeros. Good with him. I work with Estrella de Jalisco, Ernesto Molina, one of the most virtuosic musicians I've ever met in my life. And in LA is cool because you just go to gigs and then you're playing with the Sol guys or the Vargas guys or anybody who's just amazing. Most of those guys I've been lucky to at least work once with them or twice. And that's the beauty of working in LA. And it's a lot of very, very, very good musicians, world-class singers. It helped my singing a lot too, because when I was in the group, it was a 6-piece group, and these guys were so good at singing. I was by far the weakest one. So I'd be like, I kind of got to, you know,
step it up.
Exactly. So I kind of had to do that, and repertoire the same thing. So it was a great experience.
How long were you in LA?
I was in LA for 3 years. And then I moved out to Seattle for 2 years.
Oh yeah, you went to Seattle, right?
Yeah, I went to Seattle. Yeah, my fiance got a really good job offer up there. We're like, let's go. I was still writing a lot. Now at this point, I was doing a lot of conferences. I was going to Albuquerque, Tucson.
Yeah, that's when I remember. I was telling Joel here. The other thing that I admire about you is that you got to a point where your music was now being featured at these festivals.
Yeah, and it was really thanks to Aslan and to Pancho. He, one of the first big things I did is Tucson conference with Johnny Contreras, and who's now Adrian Perez also out there. They invited Aslan to come direct. I don't know if you went on that trip.
Yeah, I think that was probably the last one I did with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was in Tucson, and he needed original music for it, and he called me. He's like, "Can you write?" Oh, I did a song, Los Michoacanos, and I did Juan Juan Colorado, I think I did like two or three arrangements. And that's really when they got to a bigger audience. A lot of these kids from California or Chicago, they would come to the conference and they took the music home. And so it was really cool because we got to expand to a bigger audience. So in that sense, I think it was a very big blessing. Those conferences really helped me out a lot. And I mean, honestly, they would just be like, write. And I'll be like, okay, write something new. Okay. I've done like, 4 Mi Ciudad arrangements and like, write something. I need a tema. Okay. And I think that my prices were never too crazy. So I could have charged more, but I really enjoyed it. And also I wanted to keep the work, So it was just bulk, writing a ton.
Now that we're on the whole, wave of your music being at these places, when did you ever feel like, that you caught anyone's attention, like, for instance, Jose or Rigo?
Yeah, for sure.
With your work?
Rigo was the first one. And I know exactly when it happened. We were in National City. It was in 2014. I was teaching at Roma, but it was during spring break. We went to National City, which is in San Diego suburb. And we were out there, and Rigoberto Alfaro was there. And he heard some of my stuff. And he was just super gracious the entire time. He came to me and he just so nice to me. He told me, you're very good. Keep working hard. And he told me something that has always stuck to me. He said, write every piece like it's going to be your greatest hit because you never know who's going to be listening. And it's kind of been a double-edged sword for me because it made me more of a perfectionist than I already am, which means that I've been slaving over like maybe arrangements that I shouldn't slave over that much. Like something that, for real, like something that I could have finished probably like in a day. I'll keep it for like a week because I just keep turning it around and around because I think, what if somebody hears this, And that's also been I think just because I've always been very detail-oriented. That's when I met Rigoberto. And I was able to build a relationship with him then. And then everybody knows Jose forever, but he didn't really know who I was, I don't think, until in 2015 is when we did 14 is when we went to UTRGV. Mm-hmm. Actually, it was that same year because in 2014, he came for Festiva. And we played Roberto Cantoral. And I'll never forget because, he was there and I was like, this is it right here. He's going to hear like my work. And we played it. I mean, the group was killer. 2014, the group at Aslan. It was one of the strongest groups, in my opinion, that Aslan has had. And we finished it. And then as we're clapping, because we were like, we dedicate this to you, Jose. Right. We played it for him and he was just there. And after we finished, he came and he was saying, very nice things to all of us. As people are clapping, he comes up to me, gives me a hug. And kind of just to me, he tells me, he said, something along the lines of, síguele porque tú tienes gusto y eso no se aprende. He said, like, you have good taste and you can't really learn that.
That can't be taught, no.
Yeah, well, that's what he said to me. And I remember thinking, like, my God, like, that's when you just feel that I don't know how true that is, but I think that it just really motivated me to be like, okay. And I think that's kind of when he kind of knew at least who I was.
Yeah.
And then later on, we went to record the album with him, with Aslan in 2014 in Arrowhead. And he let me kind of like direct a lot. And then I've seen him in conferences all the time. I see him at conferences when I was in LA. I never did anything with him, like with solo or anything like that. But we would see each other at conferences on Tucson, Albuquerque, Festiva. And I mean, he's mentored me a lot. I've never studied with him per se, but he's always been like, check this out. Maybe you can do this better. And be like, okay. And then I get it, and I've learned a lot from him in those senses. But I think those two has been like my biggest influences. Like I said, I just come, my school is from not just mariachi, but jazz. And like I said, I played rock and I learned at church. Church was my first love, musical love. Classical, we went back to classical. So having all those experiences kind of gives you a different perspective. A lot of mariachis, I've not been fortunate enough to play in a jazz band or like in a salsa band or in a classical group or in a rock group, whatever it might be. So I think that's just kind of how it all came together.
So a while ago, before we started, you asked me, which genre do you identify more? So now I'm going to ask you something similar. So what do you see yourself as? A writer or, a performer?
At this point, I'm a writer. Like, I don't think excelled in any one instrument enough to be known as that instrumentalist. I wish I had in many ways, but at the same time, I would not be able to have the writing credits that I've had and the luck that I've had to write for so many people if I wasn't like, if I had just been a violinist, ¿verdad? Entonces, so I think my genre would be, I'm a mariachi arranger. That's kind of like my thing. If I had to pick one, I've always, every time I listen to salsa music, I think, if I was a mariachi musician, I would have been a salsa musician. I love salsa music. I think the complexities of writing salsa music is beautiful. It's jazz too. I love jazz. I have my phases. I think I had that 2-3 years at Berkeley that I was just studying jazz all the time. It's really what's giving me a lot of edge in harmony, ear training, writing. Because a lot of mariachi musicians don't have that experience, listening to all this crazy bebop and all these crazy Miles Davis, all this craziness that's like, Birth of the Cool, that album is like, that impressed me a lot. Take Six, I listened to a lot of Take Six, the six acapellas. It just changed my life when I heard Art Tatum piano. Like, there's huge influences that I've had that are not mariachi. And when people have asked me, I was like, well, listen to, Nelson Riddle, all the Frank Sinatra arrangements, the Count Basie, all those kinds of things. That's what really has helped me go to, I guess, a little further.
To that next level.
Yeah, to a little bit more of a level of just 3-part writing and creativity. Because it's just all colors, all kinds of sounds, all kinds of instruments, all kinds of ranges, and helps your ear, helps your creativity.
I really regret not picking your brain about this before all those years ago.
I'm glad we get to talk now.
Because now, I mean, it makes more sense, with the how you're able to accomplish this versatility in your writing. You have all these influences.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, como te digo, man, it's a lot of influences from all kinds of, not just, mariachi is kind of like the end goal and the starting goal. But I just like to throw in. And as I've gotten older, I get to be more mature about it. Because at first I would just kind of throw everything in the kitchen sink in there, Yeah, we just kind of go a little overboard. And now as I get older, you get more tasteful. And you respect rests more. You give spaces, dynamics, as opposed to just, bam, right, crazy, sharp 9, sharp 11 chords. So, that's nice, but,
So this one might be a little tough to answer.
Yeah.
Right now, how the genre of mariachi is where it's going. We need more arreglistas or more composers, because that's the means of survival.
Yeah.
Do you think you're part of that movement?
I don't know, man. That's kind of like, that'd be tooting my horn too much. I think that education, I feel like I've had a good experience, and I've had a good influence in whatever capacity it might be, small, medium, whatever it might be. The industry, I feel that right now we just need more songwriters. More songwriters. But I mean, that's another conversation. Talk about the music industry in general. In general, not just mariachi. It's changed a lot. And what is popular now is, I'm starting to sound like back in my day kind of sound, right? But it's like,
we're at that age, right?
Yeah, exactly. We're getting to that age where like we don't understand young people's music anymore. I don't. I've tried, and I've talked to my students. We've had crazy debates about like, why do you like this? Why do you like this artist? What drives you to it? I can tell you what I don't like about him. Like, well, because he's good looking, or because, it's danceable. I'm like, you just play a beat and everything's danceable in a beat, So in that sense, I mean, it's not trying to start controversy, but I just feel that the whole music industry, for better or for worse, like, it's going that way. Now, being said, we have to survive somehow.
Right.
So it's either you fight the whole industry, or you join it. And that's why I've done some recordings with some artists that have gotten critiques. People have told me before, like, why are you recording with this reggaeton? Why are you doing that, man? That's like embarrassing or whatever.
Yeah, you've done some stuff.
I've done some stuff with some artists, and with Edgar Barrera, one of the best producers alive right now, and he's from Roma as well, and I got lucky enough. That's a whole different story, but he has given me the opportunity to record some trumpets and armonia and some really big name Maluma stuff.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
Carlos Rivera stuff. That's more like, you'll be like, what are you doing recording this stuff? Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm getting to put whatever I think is mariachi sound into whether I put it or not, they're still going to hear it. And that's where the wave is going. And I'm getting to put my little granito de arena. And whatever I try to do it right to that where, somebody respectable would, again, back to what Rigoberto told me, whatever you do it like it was your best ever. That means sometimes putting 2 chords. That doesn't mean writing, because that's what people like to listen to. So when I've done some of those things, why are you doing that? That's so silly. Well, I mean, first of all, a lot of people hear it, so that's kind of cool. Having millions of people hear the music, but at the same time, you also try to fight it, see what is going to happen, man. The music is going to die, I think, if we don't.
Yeah.
Si no nos acoplamos, if we don't adjust to where the music is going.
I was going to say, it's sometimes adjustment means survival.
Absolutely. And circle back to your original question, I think that, we need composers. In my opinion, we need composers that are songwriters, Now, they are out there. Yeah, I'm sure they are. Maybe they don't have the platforms they need. I mean, social media is kind of crazy now because you go viral and then that's it. Then again, you have to be able to market it properly. I mean, it's really hard. It's really hard. But if it was my honest opinion, we need more traditional. If you want, keep the mariachi tradition alive, just traditional songwriters, ranchera songwriters. Whether they're going to listen to it or not, whether it's ever going to be as big as it was, I don't think so. But I think at least in our own circles, if there was more like ranchera songwriters, we would be able to keep it alive, at least within us. I don't know. It's hard. It's very difficult. The whole music industry, it's just changing. It's always changing. And either we fight it and die, or we nos acoplamos, we adjust and we fix it. And we try to, not fix it, we try to go along with it and adapt to whatever means we can. Because, I don't know. It's hard. Like you said, it's a hard question to answer. I don't know what the answer is. I'd be a millionaire if I did. So I'm obviously not, so I don't know the answer. But I just know that whatever I do is I try to do it as best as I can. Whether it's I'm writing for 6th graders or I'm writing for, a Grammy-nominated artist or Aslan or high school. Just try to do it right. And it's worked out okay for me so far. And the same thing with recording, same thing with playing. That's it. Just keeping your standards high and always trying to get better. If you top, you go and you top out at a certain instrument, find a better teacher or learn more about harmony, learn more songs, learn more repertorio.
In a way, you just answered my next question, because I was going to ask, what advice did you have for upcoming musicians? But you're already answering right there.
Yeah. I mean, it's just really what it is I'm a teacher now. I'm teaching high school. I go to work with middle schoolers too, because it's 6 to 12 in Grand Prairie. But I mean, again, it's not to be like back in my day, that kind of thing. But I see a lot of students just kind of, it's harder with social media and keeping standards high. Mm-hmm. It's just like people are more complacent. You're okay with just doing enough. That's not always the case, because the ones that go out and succeed are the ones that try really hard. But I think that the vibe is almost always just like this thing where like, oh, you're doing good enough. Well, I mean, if that was the case, we'd never get any better. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Obviously, I believe in self-love and like taking care of yourself. But if you're always fine the way you are, you're never going to improve.
You're talking about complacency.
Complacency, exactly. Yeah, complacency. And that's something that's hard to instill. But I think that's what it is. Just don't be complacent. Don't be complacent with your playing, with your singing, with your repertoire, with your knowledge, whatever you're trying to be. If you're trying to be a singer, find yourself a vocal teacher. Learn lots of songs. Learn different genres. Excuse me. If you're trying to be a violin player, get yourself a good teacher. Give yourself experiences. Buy a good instrument. Buy a good bow. You're trying to be a good trumpet player, it's the same thing. Study different genres. Work on your range. Work on your endurance. Don't just do what you're good at. Work on your weaknesses. That's what I would say. If you want to be successful at what you do, you just have to have that passion to not be complacent. I mean, I don't know if that makes any sense, but
yeah, definitely.
That's what I think.
Definitely makes sense. Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
I have no idea. If you would have told me 3 years ago that I'd be living in Grand Prairie, teaching high school, I would have said no way. If you'd have told me 15 years ago that I'd be a mariachi arranger, I would tell you no way. Told me 10 years ago that I'd be, there's no way. So I have no idea. I'm hoping that just writing good music, recording good music, At some point, I would like to. I have a few songs that I've written myself, but I've just never had the time. At so many projects, I've been very lucky blessed with a lot of projects. Just kind of 10 years, I would at least have some sort of self-material out, as opposed to always working for other people. I have a lot of stuff that I feel like I need to give out, even if it's just to myself or just to record or to my best friends. Even if it gets 4 views on YouTube, I don't care. Just record it and put it out there. That's the very minimum. Other than that, I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to also ask that if you've ever, because I never heard of original works from you.
Yeah, I mean, just other than temas, but I have songs, a few songs here and there. I have lyrics. I have a lot of ideas. The musical side is not really what intimidates me. It's the lyrics. I'm not a lyricist, but I'm gonna take my own advice. Just work on your weaknesses.
Right.
I've been reading a lot. I've been studying a lot of lyrics. I feel that about 3 years ago, I started learning a lot of repertoire for mariachi, chambas, and gigs. And that's helped me a lot in writing lyrics because it's like having a good database. That's all it is.
Right.
It's the same thing with music. The bigger database you have, the more you can write. The same thing with lyrics. So I'm just analyzing a lot of old songs, rancheras, pop songs. I think I've gotten better at it. I'm still not a lyricist. I don't think I'll ever consider myself one, but who knows? I would like to have some original stuff recorded, and that'll give me satisfaction, I think. Other than that, I really can't tell you. And even though I'm still being Grand Prairie, I might be there till I retire. I don't know.
Or in some other corner of the world.
Or some other corner, yeah. Maybe tomorrow get called to go Japan. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? And it's just, my life has been blessed enough to just kind of keep that. It just being thrown a lot of opportunities and been able to take them. So been very, very lucky.
That's awesome, Eddie. Well, I want to thank you. To wrap up, I want to thank you for doing this and coming in to share your story.
Thank you, man.
It's quite a story, I'll tell you that. I didn't know many things that you shared today.
Yeah.
And it gives me a better understanding of, where you're coming from. And
thank you, man.
I think you're a great contribution to what we're trying to do,
I very much appreciate that.
And you're a pride of our town,
I don't know about that. Thank
who
you, man.
would have known, that, like I said, that little boy playing that solo we'll get to where you're at. So
no, man. Well, that means a lot. That means so much coming from you, and I really very much appreciate it. Thank you guys for inviting me. Well, thank you so much for having me here, Miguel. And I'm happy with what you guys are doing as well. It's really, really cool to see that. I know I've seen your name everywhere, and I'm lucky I just brought my instrument to get service from you guys. So
yeah, that's right.
I might have to leave with an extra violin here at some point because I like them very much.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much. It's been a real pleasure, real honor.
Thanks for listening.